Prosecutors say they've got enough evidence to bring obstruction charges against the former president, Donald Trump. They have been going after him for a long time. We've covered a lot of it here. We've got all sorts of issues. He's got defamation lawsuits that are civil. He's got criminal investigations taking place from the raid at Mar-a-Lago. And we've got a lot of different issues that are all percolating as it relates to Donald Trump. But a new story came out from Bloomberg that we want to dive into today. From Bloomberg, they tell us that Trump prosecutors now see evidence for obstruction charges. Very convenient from a very leaky Department of Justice. It's election season. They are supposed to be only speaking through their filings. And Merrick Garland likes to lecture us about how they only act in the court of law and he can't comment on this, that, or the other. But very conveniently, we see that in election season, when it's just a couple weeks away, they will leak out damaging information against their political opponent day after day. How many times do we have to come back here and talk about these stories? It's one after another. Leaks, typically to the Washington Post, sometimes to the New York Times, in this case, over to Bloomberg. Trump prosecutors see evidence for obstruction charges. Now, somehow, this journalist knows about their intimate decisions. They said, no decision on the charges has been made by the DOJ. Oh, well, that's nice. It might be good to know, like from the DOJ, if that's what their decision is. But timing in politics and other issues are still being debated. This article came over from Chris Strum, posted it October 19th. He says somehow he's got information, inside information from the DOJ. He says, a group of Justice Department prosecutors believe there is sufficient evidence to charge Trump with obstruction of justice. But the path to an actual indictment is far from clear, they say. The team that's part of the classified records probe has not yet made a formal recommendation to Attorney General Merrick Garland, who would ultimately approve or reject such a move, according to people familiar with the matter. They say it's also unlikely that officials would bring obstruction charges amid several other Trump investigations into potential crimes, they said. Some FBI agents oppose bringing such a politically charged case as Trump considers a 2024 presidential bid, and others support the action. Some who ask for anonymity want to discuss this so that it's not done openly. Agents don't make the final decisions. This stuff gets over to the DOJ. So the FBI agents are even recognizing, yeah, this could be a big problem. If you indict Donald Trump, does it actually help him? Does it accelerate his chances? We've said this many times before. If they do really bring sort of the vice grips to bear on Donald Trump, we've always said that I think it's going to really accelerate his support, especially as the alternative, which up until recently was the Democratic Party, as they continue to crash into oblivion. The Justice Department has publicly indicated that obstruction is a part of the probe. We've talked about this. We went through all the different statutes here previously. Obstruction, just possession of DNI classified information. And if you recall, I sort of jumped right into the obstruction. But the obstruction charge was surrounding what I believe to be the custodian of records issue. The custodian of record, in this case, Trump's lawyer, was Christina Bobb. She was apparently signed this document saying, I certify that all the library books have been delivered back over to Nara, the head librarian. It wasn't done. She didn't do a diligent search, or Trump knew, and he, all of this stuff was sort of not being done as she signed and said it was done. So they're saying it's obstruction. She made a promise. She conveyed that something was done. It wasn't. And that was done with the intent of interfering with the Justice Department investigation. So if it's all about that issue, then that opens up a whole other sort of slew of defenses, including the fact that she's Trump's lawyer, right? And so Trump didn't sign that document. So now we ask ourselves about intent. If it's an obstruction charge, did Donald Trump have the intent to obstruct the DOJ? How do you prove that? It's difficult to prove that if his custodian of records, his lawyer, was the person who signed the document, because the argument from the defense would be she's the person who had the intent, not Trump. He just defers all this stuff to his legal team. But they're going to try to make that connection. They're going to try to connect the dots on intent based on this Woodward conversation and these interviews. So let's keep going. The Justice Department has publicly indicated that obstruction is part of the issues, noting that there was probable cause for the charge in the August 5th raid of his estate. And that was part of the search warrant, right? They said possession of DNI, defense, national security information, obstruction, and there was some other one. But no charges are likely to be filed or even publicly revealed before the November 8th midterms. Yeah, because obviously now it's too late to do that. If they do it now, it's going to look hyper partisan because we're just weeks away from this election. But before that, even in the months leading up to this, we've had a lot of conversations about this. They are slow rolling this. They want to make this painful and hurt. So they're not really incentivized. They I think would be perfectly okay just letting this thing roll. Biden's going to be in charge of the DOJ for the next 2 years, regardless of who wins this next election. And so they can continue to skewer Donald Trump or at least hang this investigation over his head indefinitely because it's all upside for them. And as we are seeing from the Supreme Court in the 11th Circuit, they are not willing to allow even a special master appointed. And there's very likely we're going to see a special master booted entirely once the 11th Circuit finalizes the appeal. So if we have no special master and we have nobody overseeing what the DOJ does, they have 100% interest in just keeping this investigation going on as long as possible. And the statute of limitations on these things is, it varies based on the charges, but we're talking like 7 years. So they can sit on it for as long as they want. And this is something that I can complain about and scream about in criminal law in general, right? You have felony charges that you can sit on for 7-10 years in different statutes. Charge somebody 10 years after the fact. Ridiculous. We have Frank Figliuzzi. He's a former FBI assistant director. He says, of all the things Trump is being investigated for around the country, obstruction of justice is a slam dunk, and I think he's going to be indicted. Well, I think he's right about the indictment. I don't know that it's a slam dunk, but I think that he's going to be indicted because this is all they are living for at this moment. I don't see why a charge of obstruction couldn't be filed by the end of the year, is what he says. Now, he's a former FBI assistant director, and he works for the counterintelligence division, which means he probably doesn't have much intelligence or observational abilities at all. So you can take that for what it's worth. I'm not sure that we'll see charges before the end of the year. Now, even with overwhelming evidence, they say, the potential indictment of Trump is unprecedented, would likely set the nation into a firestorm. The decision would be important for Merrick Garland. He's 69. Stakes would never be greater. Now, normally career prosecutors assemble a memo detailing the probe, discussing the strengths and weaknesses, and efforts to retrieve these documents have gone on for a long time, and they're talking about now after Christmas. It says Merrick Garland, the U.S. Attorney General, is unlikely to make any charging decisions until after Christmas due to a variety of considerations, they said. Some people want them to finish examining everything. We know the special master is already ongoing. That review is not scheduled to be completed until December 16th. But if the 11th Circuit reverses this, if the 11th Circuit, which they've already done, they've already reversed 2 of the 4 components to Judge Eileen Cannon's order. She said, yes, a referee gets in. And the 11th Circuit has said, yes, he can get in, but he can't do certain things. Like he can't have the 100 confidential documents and they can't continue their criminal investigation. So the 11th Circuit reversed both of those. Now the government's asking them to reverse the other 2 things, throw out the special master entirely. And if they do, there's no reason. There's nobody overseeing them. There's no referee. There's no third party. So they can sit on this and basically do whatever they want. And I think it makes more sense to let it linger. You want this to hang over Trump's head the entire primary season, everything that he does. It's better if it's hang over his head rather than, even if it's a non-decision, right? You don't come out and you say, they would never come out and say, we've investigated this and we've decided not to charge him unless they could really make that sting. That would be useful. So you would imagine that would be saved up until maybe October, I don't know, 2024, probably. They say, meanwhile, Trump is also under investigation by the J6 committee. He got ordered to, they said he's going to be ordered whenever they draft the subpoena to respond to the subpoena. And he's also now sitting for a defamation deposition in a lawsuit brought by E. Jean Carroll. So you can see he's got a lot of stuff going on. And this article sort of was a nice summary that details it all for us, but we're going to unpack a lot of it here today. And we're going to start with a little bit of some Bob Woodward background. Bob Woodward is this fella right here. He is a journalist. He's written many, many books, and you may have read some of them. I have not, but he has a whole litany of them listed on Amazon. But before we take a look at those, let's see a little bit more about Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward, born Robert Upshur Woodward. He's an investigative journalist, started working for the Washington Post back in the 70s. Both him, Carl Bernstein, they were involved in the Watergate scandal with Richard Nixon. He continued to work for the Washington Post. He wrote 21 books on American politics. Wow. And 13 of those have topped bestsellers lists. So the guy's been around a long time, born in Illinois, went to Yale, which, oh, great. Yeah, here it is. I was going to say, I almost got ahead of myself. So he went to Yale. I was going to say, oh, at least he didn't go to Harvard. But guess what? Next paragraph. After being discharged as lieutenant, Woodward went to Harvard Law School. Oh, great. Oh, no. He was admitted, but he didn't go. A smart man. Instead, he's like, no, Harvard's garbage. I'm going to go be I'm going to go be a reporter at the Washington Post. I don't want to work for that. I don't want to go to that crap school. Good for him. Yeah. All right. So that's a little bit about Bob Woodward. Okay. That's who he is. Now, these are all of the books that Bob Woodward has written. So let's open this up. On Amazon, you can see Bob Woodward has written a lot about Trump. He's got a book called Peril that has Trump on it with Biden on it. He has the book called Rage, and a picture of Trump's face on there. So I guess he's implying that Trump is, raging. We also have Fear, Trump in the White House. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So you sort of get the gist of what this guy is sort of into here. And it says he's an associate editor, Pulitzer Prize, blah, blah, blah. All right. So that's Bob Woodward. Now we know a little bit more about him. So he sat down with Donald Trump for a whole slew of interviews. And there's some background on this here from The Guardian. Now, what's funny about this article is I wanted to share this with you because of the title of this article. So Trump sitting with Kim Jong-un or standing with Kim Jong-un, shaking hands. Of course, this was a giant deal when it happened. Everybody said he was reckless and so on. He crossed the line. Remember that? I mean, it was like a worldwide moment. It was a crazy ordeal. But there apparently were some problems with some of the correspondence that took place. Some letters that Trump might have hung on to or something. Let's see what they're talking about. The Guardian tells us that Trump admitted. See that language? Very, very particular. He admitted Trump knew that he had confidential secret letters and that these were top secret national security catastrophes if they got out. Admitted implying intent. Oh, busted. We finally got him. Because remember, the custodian of records, that was Christina Bobb. If she signed the document saying, I confirm we don't have any additional confidential material, and she sends that over to the DOJ, Trump is immunized. What does Trump know, whether that's accurate or not? She's just his lawyer. But if Trump says, hey, I know these are secret letters, baby. I got the goods. You want to see these confidential top secret TCSCI materials? Here you go, Bobby. Take a look at what I've got here, Bob. What do you think, Bobo? Then it's like Trump knew. Trump had the intent. Trump was malicious. He had what's called a guilty mind. He had a guilty mental state, mens rea. And in law, you sort of need two sides. You need a guilty mind plus an action of guilt. In this case, it would have been knowing that he had confidential documents and then withholding the documents while affirming that he had turned them all over, right? So he's sort of part of this conspiracy. The Guardian has a lot of fun with this. Trump admitted, that the letters were secret. Audio reveals. Okay, let's listen after we get some background. Now, Chris Stein wrote this. It says the ex-president's 2019 interview with Bob Woodward appears to undermine his defense in the Mar-a-Lago raid investigation. Okay, Chris, let's see. Donald Trump acknowledged in 2019 that the letters he wrote to Kim Jong-un and later took with him upon leaving the White House were secret. Busted. That's according to reportings that came out from Bob Woodward that call into question Trump's main defenses, they say. Now, in December of an earlier year, Trump shared with Woodward that he had letters. He said, nobody else has them, but I want you to treat them with respect. And don't say I gave them to you, okay? Oh my gosh, it sounds like a conspiracy. Sounds like Trump is literally coaching Bob Woodward to look at top secret national security documents, knowing these are secret. I'm surprised we're still here. I think that this probably should have led to the end of the world, Armageddon or something. Now, like if you read that literally, hey, nobody else has them. Hey, Bob, nobody else has these things. Okay, top secret. Or he's just kind of being jokey about this, as we'll see in a minute. When in a phone call the following months, Woodward asked to see what Trump had written to the North Korean leader, the president replied, oh, those are so top secret. He knew. Busted. The comments contradict Trump's claims that he took no government secrets with him upon leaving the White House. In reality, the National Archives, which is tasked with preserving the records, spent much of 2021 trying to get the Kim letters back, only succeeding earlier this year after they raided his residence. So again, okay, these are the documents we're talking about. Letters. Not nuclear bomb material, not top secret military installation plans. Letters that look like Trump wrote them. It sounds like Trump wrote them. Did I get that right? That the letters that Kim had written to him, okay, so he's got those back. So Trump wrote some and Kim wrote those. Kim sent letters back to him. Nobody else has seen them. Okay, so he's got both sides of the letters. So unless Kim Jong-un had something in his letters to Trump, he's like, all right, we're raiding here. We're coming onto the shores of Manhattan at this time. It's probably not anything of real national security concern, if I had to guess. The statements included in the new book by Bob Woodward, coming out October, set for release on Tuesday, also raises questions about the credibility of his defense and the allegations that he illegally kept government secrets at his South resort in Mar-a-Lago. FBI searched the place. Of course, he's fighting that. We've been covering that a lot. The letters to Kim written, these are also written by Trump. The letters to Kim written by Trump as part of his administration's attempt to defuse nuclear tensions with North Korea. What a monster. These documents are probably like historic. In fact, they should send copies of these documents over to the Biden administration and say, hey, moron, here's how you write a letter to a dictator. Hey, dum-dum, why don't you send something like this? Why don't you're a plagiarist. You've plagiarized a lot before. Why don't you just plagiarize my document? Send a copy of what I sent to Kim Jong-un, send that over to Putin. Maybe then we can go to sleep at night without having to worry about nuclear annihilation. I was able to handle this with Kim Jong-un. Maybe you should do what I did. But all of that material is apparently top secret, and the world was going to end unless the DOJ raided his house. Got it. Now, it shows his apparent admiration for the leader of one of the world's most repressive regimes. Now, you know what? He should have called him a bunch of names and sanctioned him a bunch of times, because that's worked so well with Putin. Nice job there on your foreign policy. This author is obviously having a difficult time with understanding. I think that the connection between feelings and results, like it might feel great to do whatever they're doing with Russia, but is it delivering results? Not really. Looking like things are getting worse day by day. But Trump is seemingly diffusing a situation with the North Koreans that has gotten worse since he's left. And they're saying that this guy was negotiating with one of the most repressive regimes ever, blaming him for that because they have what's called TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. The two men exchanged birthday greetings. Oh my gosh. His birthday is probably top secret too. And best wishes for friends and family, according to English translation of the letters that the Post reported, and that are included in a written transcript of the audiobooks. So it sounds like Bob Woodward already knows what's in these things. So there's not even an urgency. Remember the urgency argument? We have to act quickly. We have to act so quickly because Trump has had these documents at his location for 2 years, and now suddenly they're a concern. And we have to act so urgently that even Merrick Garland spent, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks musing around about whether to raid the home of a former president, allegedly. And Joe Biden knew nothing about it at all because they are separating. They're not talking. It's ridiculous. And so there is no urgency because Bob Woodward already knew about the letters. They were going in his book anyways. During his visits to the White House, Trump asked Woodward about the documents and if he had made a photostat of them or something. Woodward replied that he had dictated them into his recorder. In the interview with the Washington Post, Woodward, an associate editor at the paper, said that Trump allowed him to handle the documents in a West Wing office as an aide watched. But Woodward says the document contained no obvious classification markings. Oh, you're kidding me. So there's questions about the status of these documents? Yeah, there are. In other words, the DOJ doesn't just get to presume that they're theirs, right? They say they do. And the 11th Circuit has basically said they have that ability. And so has SCOTUS. Or at least they've declined to review it further. But Bob Woodward got it all done. It felt like in the White House, aides watching over the whole thing. Got to raid his house to get those back. In the audiobook, Woodward describes the casual, dangerous way, that Trump treats the most classified programs and information. As we've seen now in Mar-a-Lago, where he had 184 classified documents, including 25 marked top secret. Yeah, probably some more birthday cards from Kim Jong-un. Yeah, definitely worth melting down the country. Great. He was talking specifically about a comment that we'll listen to in a minute, saying that Trump, quote, built a weapons system that nobody's ever had in this country before. We have stuff you haven't even seen or heard about. Is that illegal? Can you not say that as the president? What? Yes, of course you say that. It's just like I say, we're the best law firm in Arizona, definitely the Southwest, very likely the entire country, and quite probably the world because of the mental brain power that we have at our firm, right? It's speaking with some bravado, right? It's selling, baby. Hey, China and Russia, guess what we have? You don't even want to know. You'll be in big trouble. Right? It's all that stuff. I love the fact that he talks about that. And the Chinese haven't even seen it. We have stuff that Putin and Xi never even heard about, says Trump. Hell yeah, baby. Get it. That's right. That's what you want in a leader. Don't mess around, right? What's the saying? F around and find out, Of course, the world was a lot more stable when those types of statements were met. Speak softly, but carry a big stick. And that apparently is evidence that Trump is communicating about dangerous national security information. Ridiculous. All right. So that's the background from The Guardian. I'm stumbling all over myself. And it is very emotively conjugated, is it not? Look at this title. Trump admitted, which means they say he's now got intent and they can connect these dots with his own recordings to say there's enough evidence there of obstruction. The documents were not returned or he knew that they were top secret at the time and still took them out of the White House. We'll see where this goes, but let's take a look and listen to the actual clips because of course, that's what we were reading about. We have several of them to queue up. Here is the first one. So this is from CNN. Donald Trump is having a conversation with Bob Woodward. And during the conversation, Trump says to Bob Woodward, hey, I've got these very interesting documents. You know where they came from? Where? Says Bob. Kim Jong-un from North Korea. You want to take a look at them? Here's what that sounded like.
You hear him handing them over to Bob Woodward in real time. And listen to what he says.
Nobody else has them, but I want you to treat them with respect. I understand. And don't say I gave them to you, okay?
Okay.
But I think it's okay. Normally, I wasn't going to give them to Bob, Would you make a photostat of them or something?
No, I dictated them into a tape recorder.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know which part.
She's just totally shocked. She has no idea what to say about this. But Trump tells Bob Woodward, hey, I've got these documents. Here's what they are. Bob Woodward already read them, dictated them into a recorder so that he has them for transcription purposes so that he can talk about them in his new book. But Trump saying, these are pretty important materials, and I think it's okay if I show this stuff to you. Let's listen to it one more time.
In real time and listen to what he says.
Nobody else has them, but I want you to treat them with respect. I haven't
I
given them to
understand,
anyone.
I understand.
And don't say I gave them to you, okay?
Okay,
But I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Normally, I wasn't going to give them to Bob,
Of course,
Would you
yeah.
make a photostat of them or something?
no, I dictated them into a tape recorder.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know which.
CNN just baffled. No idea what to say. So Bob Woodward, of course, got the documents. Seems like everything was perfectly fine. Read them into the recorder so he could transcribe them, and that's it. Not that big of a deal. That's the leaked materials. And I thought that Trump kind of sounded like he was jokey. Hey, don't run away with these documents. He's kind of, sort of being folksy with him a little bit. That's the intent. That's the evidence of a guilty mind. Donald Trump has the mens rea now of obstruction because he knew he had the documents. He knew they were precious. He knew they were top secret, and so on. Trump, communicating with the journalist Bob Woodward, says that I've got, what does he say here? I forgot what he says here. What's this clip? Oh, weapon systems. Donald Trump is talking about weapon systems now. Yeah, this is the other clip. In an interview, in an interview with Bob Woodward, Donald Trump says, we've got some powerful weapons systems, the likes of which you've never seen before. And if anybody wants to mess with us, they'll learn about them quickly.
I have built a weapons system that nobody's ever had in this country before. We have stuff that you haven't even seen or heard about. We have stuff that Putin and Xi have never heard about before. Getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing, all right? Especially because they have 1,332 nuclear warheads.
Effing weapons. 1,332 effing nuclear weapons. It's a good idea to get along with the Russians, lest we be nuked into oblivion. Makes sense to me. A lot of people in this world evidently have forgotten about that little detail in this whole battle. But Trump, of course, has not. And he says that if this stuff gets a little bit contested, that they've got stuff that the Russians have never seen, and sounds like they may be willing to use them. Both of those clips, of course, are being bandied about as evidence that Donald Trump was aware of criminality, that he was obstructing justice, and it may be enough for the DOJ to lead to an indictment. We'll, of course, have to wait and see. We'll continue to cover that. I hope you join us on that journey. Thank you for subscribing and following wherever it is you watch this show, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.